Okay, so welcome to Enhancing the Accountant Bookkeeper Connection series featuring my friend, my accountant, my colleague, Jonathan Carter from CATA Accounting. So myself, I am Tanya Hiltz, for those who do not know me, and a CPB, FCPB, AIA, and an L5CA, and working on another one. Um, if you believe you can change, if you make the habit, the change becomes real. And a lot of, what, I'm working with Jonathan and, trends these days and whatnot are all about change. So, the big thing is make it a habit, then it becomes real. And that was a really good quote that I found. This webinar does qualify for CPD credits through CPB Canada automatically. It does meet all qualifications for unverified credits through everywhere else, as far as I'm aware, through, CPA, as well as through most of the US ones. There will be two polls that must be both answered in order to qualify for these credits. And the recording of the webinar and your credits will be emailed within 7 days. If you do not receive that recording, if it's not received within 7 days, again, another thing I've got to update on this, not 7 hours, 7 days. Don't forget to check your spam. Then you've unsubscribed from our list. So go to bookkeepersbootcamp.ca, rescribe. You will then receive a second email asking, do you still want to rescribe? Check your spam for that too and verify it. If you still have not received it when that's happened, email me, I can resend it. And then do not unsubscribe again in the future unless you don't want to hear from us again, or you're going to have to repeat this all over again. And this is Jonathan. So he is founder and principal of CATA Accountant. We've been collaborating with Jonathan and his team for, probably close to a decade now. So that should be upgraded to that. We have multiple mutual clients. Jonathan and his team work in QBO. They pay really close attention to detail, outstanding customer service. And so when we have clients that are new, do not have an accountant yet, or expose to us that they are frustrated with their current accountant. Jonathan is the top of the list. We do give three options, but Jonathan is always the top of the list. And then I do follow that up with he is my accountant as well. So yeah, so that's the the confidence that I have in Jonathan and his team.
Much.
That is it. I'm going to pass it all over to you, Jonathan, now.
Awesome. So just before we get going, I did want to ask, I put a request out in Heartbeat for those of you who are on the Heartbeat platform looking for ideas. I mean, one of the things that I really want to focus on this year is not talking to an audience, but working with an audience to get the things that they really value as presentation topics. So that's one of my goals this year. That's why I put it out there. I do schedule these in advance. I do not yet have anything scheduled for March or for February or March. We skip April and then we'll be back for June. And then I can't recall. Did we skip July, August, and December, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then September is usually like kind of takeaways from CPB Ignite and those early conferences. So, all right. So, thanks everybody for coming and thanks for joining as panelists because I do want this to be interactive. It seems appropriate that we're going to be talking about SMART goals. So I did realize that a lot of why I'm not moving the needle in my business is because I'm setting goals that are too big. I'm overreaching with what I want to accomplish. So the goal for today's presentation is to talk about various goals that you might have and then breaking them down into their component parts into smaller SMART goals that can be achieved that will help move the needle in your business. All right. So just a little bit about me. Yeah, I love collaborating. I love collaborating. I really enjoy these presentations when everybody joins and we can have good, meaningful discussions because there are times where I learn as much from the audience as the audience learns from me. I was the founder of CAT Accounting, member of the inaugural Intuit Accountants Council, still working with Intuit from time to time, recipient of the Inspire Accountant Award, Elite Pro Advisor, QBO Advanced Certified, and Insightful Accountant 2021. 2, and 3 top 100 and top 50 international for 2024. Our biggest achievement to date has been CPB Firm of the Year for 2023. So yeah, let's take it away. So has anyone ever heard of a BHAG? BHAGs? All right, we're gonna get into that. And oh yeah, we have one. Okay, awesome. So there's really a couple of ideas. One is the BHAG, and that is something that is huge. And then there's the concept of just one thing. And there's actually a book by I think it was the founder of Keller Williams about just one thing. What is that just one thing that you can accomplish in the week that'll move the needle? What is the just one thing that you can accomplish in the month that will move the needle? And then breaking that down into your weekly and your daily items. Then we're going to go through the SMART goal idea, and then going to look at some examples of going from a BHAG to just one thing. So let's start with our first poll question. What is your top goal for your business this year? Revenue growth, process improvement, hiring good team members, controlling your time, or exiting?
So
Exiting is a
I did not get the polls in apparently. So just go ahead, type it in the chat. And then I will pull the chat and make sure that I still am keeping that to make sure that you get your credit. So, um,
this is purely subjective.
yes, and I apologize for this. As most of you know, I've had a very rough month. I ended up with double pneumonia, so that was pneumonia in both lungs. Had to order an oximeter and a whole bunch of things to basically avoid going to the hospital to get sicker because I always get sicker at the hospital. So it's been a rough month catching up with stuff. So my apologies. So let me make sure we've got everybody to
I
Kim.
want to, I just want to interject for a minute for everybody to double check their messages because some people DM'd me. I do see a couple of you
That
corrected.
was me.
You were one of them, but there were some others too. So
Oh,
everybody
okay.
double check that you sent your message to Tanya.
Thank you, Kim. Either DM me or put it public. It doesn't matter because I'm going to it's in here anyway. So.
I had
Perfect.
3 people that DM'd me. As much as I
I
love
don't
it,
even know what the poll question answers are anymore. Sorry. Whatever. Revenue growth for me, but whatever.
Sorry, is it not on the screen? Is it not on the
Okay.
screen?
it's on the screen. I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Because
still
I'm
on the
looking at
screen.
your faces, not looking at the screen. Sorry.
Okay, and then go ahead if you can put that in here too, please, because I don't see yours is not in the chat, Shannon. So if you can just throw it in the chat, because I do need it documented to be able to back this up. Perfect. Okay, great. So, and we'll do that for the second poll
So
too.
poll results, Tanya. Quick.
Okay, poll results, mostly A. B came in second, and then C trailed behind.
Good job.
Interesting. So everybody's calendars and time management is totally in control. That's impressive. Uh,
Oh,
I see people laughing about that one. Okay, yeah, totally. So
we were
I
only
think
allowed to pick one answer. So
Yeah,
that's true.
you said that the top one.
That's right. Top goal, not all
Yeah,
goals.
yeah. So I think most of us are looking at revenue growth, and I mean that makes a lot of sense. We have to circle back to what's our why. So would anybody like to volunteer as to why revenue growth is their top objective this year?
Well, actually, I have my team, and now I have to have more clients to increase my revenue so I can pay them and get paid.
Yeah, that sounds like the same boat I'm
You
in.
know.
I want our business to be sustainable. I want to build a really good place to work, and to do that, we need the funding, right? So
Well,
that's very important.
and I'd also like to add that I think right now, um, and I don't want to put like a downer on this conversation, but it's something that we all need to really be aware of, that those of us in Canada anyway. I don't know, do we have any Americans on the call? I know Elaine, I think you're Canada, and Beth, I think you're Canada as well too. So yeah, I think we're all Canadians. But you know, we do have we are going to be hitting definitely some bumpy economic roads in the near future, right? We are basically, I'm preparing for revenue growth that will end up replacing revenue if we do end up losing some clients. I mean, our niche, we learned through COVID and all of that, our niche is actually, pretty good with that. But just in case there are some impacts, we want to grow to be able to offset some of the impacts as well. I would like to add something totally different. My top goal for business this year, the top one, is to work closer with my clients. To help them be able to, sustain themselves as best as possible through the bumpy roads ahead as well. I think that will definitely add more value to the services provided, add, more strength in that. And one of the things that I'm actually doing, I'm taking a cash flow, so I'm taking a certification for cash flow canvas to be a cash flow canvas coach, which is Tanya Wood Richardson, and she works like reverse engineers everything, and it makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of where my focus is helping the clients, which will ultimately to my revenue growth.
Yeah, just a quick thing about that. I have a couple things I want to say, but first, if anybody hasn't done the wake up call with Tanya Woods Richardson, I'd highly recommend it. It will force you to face some hard questions, but I think it's very important for people to understand. Knowing where you are is your starting point to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, and
So
that I do have a link. She does those 4 times a year. I do have a link. I'll grab it, put it in here that anybody can through my link can register for free. And then
I have a similar affiliate link in our newsletter every month. So we
perfect.
highly
Yeah. So you'll get it from a few places. You can give your clients those same links. Just know there is going to be an upsell. So I would highly recommend you do it first before you do it with any clients, because there is going to be a little bit of an upsell on the end, for that. Shannon, you had your hand up, it looked like.
Oh, yeah, I did it. And that's why I need revenue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Also,
then this basically,
also, my chamber membership went up by 40% this year. So I'm like,
80%.
wow.
clearly I'm undercharging. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's good. And then the cash flow certification, the cash flow canvas is the next step to that. I did that one. Then I took her Fierce Founders, which is the one she does the upgrade at the end, which is way too much. People can't afford that. That's like a $10,000 coaching type thing. Then you come back. This is a middle one that we can, really do. So I will be offering it out to, to do boot camps and whatnot as I, am learning. I will be offering free ones for looking for feedback through the industry and through clients. So keep an eye out for that. But anyway, let's move on with this.
Okay, so a couple things. Beth put her response in the Q&A, so make sure you pick that up so she gets credit. She has her chat disabled, so she had to put it through Q&A. Also, I just wanted to mention that revenue growth cannot be in a silo. I mean, we've seen recently the collapse of a pretty major organization that was very focused on revenue growth, but perhaps didn't do enough of a good job on pricing and understanding their cost structure. And it caused, they could not find a buyer and they did collapse. I have also over the years, seen people show up and they're excited to get going and they're having a lot of success driving revenue, but then they're failing to fulfill their deliverables. And it causes, of course, the company to implode, and it could cause worse things like lawsuits or something like that. So revenue growth is a great target, a great goal to have as a broad overreaching thing, but needs to be balanced with everything else, right? Process improvement, hiring good team members, and controlling your time. Specifically, the time, making sure you have the capacity to take on that work as it comes. Okay, so what's your why is the most important thing. Why do you want to achieve the goal you're setting? So for me, the revenue growth is for a sustainable business that can continue to be a good place to work and trying to transition to being a great place to work. We have some other, I'm just going to call them secret goals that we have, but we need the money to execute on those. So really it's for, I want my lifestyle to remain pretty much the same. I don't want to be working 60 hours a week when I don't have to. I want to build a saleable asset, but my legacy is I want to build a really great place to work. I want to build a place where clients have relationships and they feel comfortable coming to us and something like that. Would anyone else like to share their why? There were several in the chat. And a lot of them are, things like, feeding your team, making sure your team can pay their mortgages, pay the rent and stuff like that. Making the business sustainable. Getting back to, pre-COVID situations. Competitively pricing and growing revenue that way. That's one thing that I've really noticed lately is the actual bookkeeping quotes we're putting out. A lot of times we have to kind of write them and say like, you got to compare apples to apples, and your previous bookkeeper / accountant was way undercharging you. We recently had one where our quote ended up being about $1,000 a month, and their previous person after tax was charging them about $415 a month. And quite often you get what you pay for, right? Yep. Ross says all those things are interrelated. Yeah, revenue is not the only thing. I mean, it's a good goal to have, but you need to understand what you need to do to fulfill those commitments you've made. Yeah, when you're in the zone of not bringing enough cash, your other goals fall behind because you're scrambling to get cash. I totally know what you're talking about. A lot of people cheering on Tracy. Kim, who wants lifestyle. Awesome. I mean, really, why are we doing this? Are we doing this to like just sit at a computer all day and work all the time? No, we're doing it for the rest of life. Awesome. Does anybody want to share anything else about their why? No? Yeah.
I'd say, I mean, the biggest thing for me is I'm on my own. And so I do have one employee. And I mean, other than the sustainability and all that jazz, it is building my nest egg for eventual retirement or slowdown or whatever. But because I'm on my own in my business, I mean, I have an employee, but I mean, in this house, I'm the only one that brings in the money. So I have to make sure that this is a business that's sustainable to keep me going for, I don't know, at least another 10 years, but building
And
up enough of a nest egg so that I can retire at some point.
that's exactly what I was
I'd,
gonna
I'd like to
kind of.
say 5 years, but that's not gonna,
I think it's particularly important to build saleable assets.
yeah.
Building a job does not provide the long-term value. If you build a saleable asset, even if you're not selling the shares of your corporation and getting that lifetime capital gains, you're getting something for all that blood, sweat, and tears you put into your business.
Yeah.
So making sure it's saleable is really important.
Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, what Tanya said about COVID, there was a few businesses that I had that, went by the wayside and it hit my bottom line. So I'm still building that back. I've had a couple in and a couple go. I just had one last year that, was quite lucrative, but they were doing things that were red flags that I realized really quickly. Probably didn't do enough checks and balances because it was a friend of mine. Lesson learned. But yeah, they turned around. I don't know whether they saw the red flags, but they decided to take their bookkeeping in a different direction. And I just said, okay. And I let them go because I knew that there was going to be that conflict all the time. The biggest thing for me was on the T4As, where they had honorable honorariums paid out all the time, which is fine, but a lot of them were over $500 in a year. So now you have to do a T4A, and they were refusing that they would never issue them.
Yeah.
So when
We
they
get
said I'm
into
going in a different direction, I went, okay, bye.
we could get into the details about
Oh, yeah.
that kind of thing.
No,
I'm going to try and
yeah.
stay focused on this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I realized Tracy had her hand up earlier and we failed to call on her. Tracy, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I just ended up putting it in the chat in
Okay.
regards to revenue growth and stuff. And a lot of my comments, like when you're scrambling for cash, you don't have time to think about anything else. So For me,
Yeah.
it's just really restructuring my pricing, making sure that revenue grows. And as that revenue growth happens, all of those other goals that were on that poll are going to come, and I'm going to have the time to focus on those goals.
And can I just take a moment and I want to clap for you, Tracy, because that's amazing to see. For those who didn't see, I'm clapping first. For those who didn't see what she put in the chat, it was that she let go of a huge client last week, lost quite a bit of revenue, but the stress wasn't worth it anymore. You have been struggling. And shoot me and I'll cut this out afterwards if you don't want this up on when we put this up. But you've been struggling with that, for so long. And the fact that you finally just did it is amazing. And let me ask you, how do you feel? A little bit scared because of the loss of revenue, right? You got to replace it. But how do you feel, Tracy?
It was a lot of lost revenue. The first couple of days, you go through the tears because I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that client. And the fact that all I got back from them was flack and best of luck, that was it. That's all I got from them. Took me a couple of days, but I know I'm now in that position where it was the right thing for me to do.
And does that not feel so liberating?
It just feels like a weight's kind of been lifted off of my shoulders, and I'm able to put more care into those other clients because they were a needy client. It was one of those ones where he gets mad if you don't answer his phone call right away. If you don't answer his email within an hour, he's emailing you back. And it was like, I just couldn't do it anymore.
But you know what? I guarantee you within the next couple of weeks, you're going to get a call. It seems that when a door, a door closes, another one opens. You let it go on your terms. And I just wanted to point that out. I am so proud of you, Tracy. You should be so proud of yourself. And you really deserve the accolades for that because I know how long you struggled for that. So if anybody else can learn
Thank you.
from that, it's hard. Tracy struggled, but she did it and she's still here and thinking positive. So I just wanted to take a moment and just really like celebrate that with you. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, I'm trying to be a bit mindful of time. So I'm going to push through. BHAGs are big, hairy, audacious goals. These are giant goals. Like I'm going to lose 50 pounds. Okay, great. You've defined what you want to do, but you have no time limit. You don't have it's a big thing to do, and you're going to have to make smaller goals to actually achieve that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal. So from the initial poll, all of these were poorly defined BHAGs. They were not well set out goals. They were general statements of what you want to do, but there was no specifics. BHAGs have a huge impact and they really help them move the needle, but they're too big to be just that's your goal. They have to be broken down into smaller goals that can be achieved week by week, month by month, quarter by quarter. So we're going to have a look at this example. So BHAG for revenue growth. These are just some ideas of what you need to do to achieve that. So ideal customer avatar, understanding your service offerings, what you're willing to offer and what you won't. Do you do tiered packages? Do you do custom packages? Do you have standardized procedures, policies, things along those lines? I'll tell you, our policies and our manuals have really helped our bookkeeping team take control of that aspect of the business. I rarely have to step in anymore to help with bookkeeping. Then pricing. I mean, this is something that we talk about all the time. The best way to increase revenue is to increase price. That's empirically proven data, and that's like economy wide, which I think is why price things always get more expensive. Then you're going to have to look at your marketing strategy and your tactics. You might need help with this kind of thing. Maybe this is when you involve a coach or an advisor, a consultant, or maybe you hire somebody or outsource some of this stuff. But if you don't know who you want to talk to, the strategy and tactics from like bullet 4 are going to be kind of all over the place. We had a very negative experience with Google Ads using a consultant. And I think a big part of that reason was because we did not define our customer avatar well. We spent about $5,000 for half a dozen leads that all wanted their taxes done for free. So obviously we did not do a good job of that. And of course, you have to define a revenue target. Now, of course, this is just some ideas. Are there any other ideas of smaller goals that will help you achieve that BHAG of revenue growth?
I'd say boundaries is important towards revenue growth because and I think it was Tracy or somebody that said it in the chat about giving things away for free.
Yeah.
So I think when you have boundaries of what you will and will not provide and what is and isn't included with your services, then those things that you've been giving away that you start charging for is going to contribute to your revenue growth, right?
Yeah. Like we just had one come in recently where the client got a notice of a reassessment. They ignored a review letter. They signed up for our cheapest package. They have been a long time client. So we went as far as saying, okay, here's what happened. Here's your documents, but you did not sign up for audit or review insurance. Would you like us to start an engagement for that? Making it very clear that you got the lowest package. And in the past, we would have bent over backwards to do everything for free. But you need to consider the higher level package for the next time. And you're going to have to pay if you want our help with this
Yeah.
task. Right? Those little things. Ad hoc reports is another really common one.
Yeah.
I find that it's really helpful that in our tiered packages, in our silver and our gold packages, we offer up to one ad hoc report a month. And that just kind of covers that base. And we allow it to build up a bit. So if they need like 4 reports in December, I'm not going to nickel and dime them on that, but because they've been paying for one. Any other ideas about breaking down that revenue growth BHAG into more smaller things? Let's keep going. So sample goal is to achieve 50% revenue growth by the end of the 2025 calendar year. The why is to create a going concern that generates enough revenue to operate without the owner's regular and direct involvement in completing day-to-day work. This is just an example. So, is this a SMART goal? It is specific, right? We want to increase by 50%. It is measurable because we've got that 50%. Is it attainable? That's a question that really needs to be considered. Does it relate to the why? It does, based on that sample. And there is a deadline, the end of calendar 2025. To be clear, this is not CATA Accounting's goal. We do have a revenue growth goal, but it's not that aggressive. Tracy, you have a question or something to say?
Yes, that was one of the comments I was going to ask. 50% growth in 11 months seems very high. Like what,
Yeah.
in everybody's opinion, what do you think is a revenue growth percentage that is sustainable, but is not going to kick your butt by the end of the year and burn you out?
I think if I can just throw it there, I think it's really going to be dependent on each business. And that business's processes, procedures, manuals, policies. Because if you have those things in place, it's easier to scale. Whereas if you don't have them in place, then everything is a scramble. Another thing that we're doing is the training is being done by our more senior people instead of by me. So that's been a huge thing to take stuff off my plate and make that part of our business to be able to scale quicker. So that's just my thoughts on that. Like our goal is not nearly that aggressive. Our goal is aggressive, but not that aggressive.
So I'd also like to add in that, yes, to point out, I guess, and highlight that, yes, you said it depends on your firm. A one-person firm might, even with procedures in there, may be able to, grow one client a month. That might be too much for a one-person firm. It might be one client every 2 months because you're juggling your work depending on how much you put into the onboarding. I would like us to get to one client a month with us, and we've got a team of 4 pretty much, 3 full-time, 1 part-time now, because of the fact that we spend a lot of time with the onboarding. We meet with the client an hour a week, so for 12 weeks. So you figure if we do that, we're meeting with 3 people every single week on top of the normal work, and to make sure that we're doing that. Whenever we have taken on more at once, things have fallen apart because I juggle so many other things as well, because I'm not full-time into the bookkeeping, right? So yeah, it really depends on the firm. Do not put a lot of pressure on yourself if you're a solo firm. If you are dropping the ball, you're moving too fast, or your procedures and processes aren't strong enough. You need to build that foundation first and then do it. And if you're like, hey, one was no problem, I can bring on 2, start doing it that way. But, take it from me. We did that last year, and I am putting out fires, and thankfully I've not lost the clients from it, but I'm still putting out fires that I didn't have them where I wanted them to be. They will be by the end of next month, but that's 6 months to get all of our processes and get it offboarded from me onto the team. And that is unacceptable. And it's because we brought on like 6 in 1 month, because I felt the need, because I needed income, and I paid for it in other ways. So,
We've got a couple hands.
yep, Kim.
Yeah, just very quickly, I was going to say, my answer was going to be really similar. And Tanya, I'm glad you added the part about if you start dropping balls, you've gone too fast, because I don't think it matters. I don't think every firm can say, I want to grow 20%. I want to grow 50%. I want to grow by X number of dollars. I want to grow by X number of clients. It's very individualized. You could have 2 sole proprietors that are both have 20 clients each and both making the same amount of money, but they will grow at different paces. They will onboard at different paces. They will have different packages for their clients. There's just too many variables to say a sole proprietor should grow. This is an ideal growth target for somebody, right? It's very individualized.
Exactly.
Now, I do know of a couple scenarios I just want to talk about real quick. I do know of a bookkeeper who is offloading clients. She's trying to sell clients, and it makes sense for her stage in her career. She's trying to keep, the ones that she really likes working with, that are easy for her to work with, and is, trying to sell off those clients that are larger, that need more attention than she's willing to provide at this stage of her career. So she's trying to cash out, and it makes complete sense for where she is. I would say anybody who's looking at a longer time horizon, I think you need to be looking at a minimum growth of 5% just to keep up with inflation. Lynn, what's up?
Yeah, it also, the type of industry that you're working with too plays a big factor in it, because some industries are easy peasy, you can do them half the time with your eyes closed, but there's other industries that take a whole lot more effort to stay on top.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
I just want to also point out too that growth, because you're right, Jonathan, you need to grow by 5%. Growth isn't new clients necessarily. Growth could also be adding additional services to existing clients, upping their prices. It should be up by a minimum of 5% a year to keep up with that. So that is also considered growth. Growth is not just a brand new client.
Upselling is one of the best ways to increase the stickiness of your relationship with the client and increase revenue. All right, let's keep piling through here. So we have a specific goal, that's revenue growth. It is measurable, 50%. The goal is possible, but might not be easy. So for instance, for using CAT as an example, maybe we go with an offshore team. We get them trained up on our systems. We go very aggressive on our marketing. We try to bring on those clients. We might get that revenue growth. The pricing is so important, because if you bring on those new clients and it's costing you more to service them, it's kind of defeating the purpose, right? It's relevant. It ties to the owner's why, as we used in the example, and it's time bound. There was a deadline, the end of 2025 calendar year. So there is, so first of all, babysitting their CRA accounts, I am in the exact same boat as Kim. We offer that on our mid and our high level bookkeeping clients. For our personal tax clients, we offer that for our silver and gold clients. And to give you an idea, a couple at our silver package is over $1,000 for personal tax. So we want that stickiness, we want that relationship, and we want to help them be protected by CRA. You said, yeah, I agree with Lynn. E-commerce is one. I'm sorry, maybe I missed that. What do you mean?
So we were talking about the intensity of certain niches that requires more time to address in terms of the growth percentage of the businesses.
And I hate to be the harbinger or whatever, but I'm really worried about e-commerce because of the geopolitical events happening south of the border. I mean, a lot of e-commerce is based on goods coming from China. And, you know, there's some questions as to what's going to happen come Saturday. So from BHAG to just one thing. So we've talked quite a bit about the BHAG. We've broken up into the SMART goals. Now we're going to take these other ideas that we had and we're going to kind of create a timeline of what we'll do to achieve that BHAG. So obviously, if you haven't done this stuff already, achieving that 50% growth by the end of the calendar year is probably going to be very difficult. It all starts with defining the ideal customer, in my opinion. I'd love to hear if there's any dissension or disagreement there, but I think you need to know what you want in order to get what you want. And determine the services you're willing to offer. So these are like breaking up that BHAG into more defined goals. So they're time bound, it's specific. We know what we want to do. We know when we need to do it by. Determining the services you're willing to offer, I think combined in here is those boundaries. I think as part of this, there are those boundaries. Another person who I know out in BC, he's having a real challenge now because he sold a lot of packages where they have all access to him. And some people take a big advantage. Sometimes he's like hearing from the client, you know, once every like couple weeks or something like that. But in others, they're calling him 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. And so understanding what's going to be involved in that and adjusting as you move forward, I think is going to be very important. So the next, of course, is determine how you're willing to offer those services. Are you going to do it as tiered packages, custom packages, standardized procedures, custom procedures? I'm a big believer in standardization because it allows you to scale. I love the tiered packages model as well because it clearly defines what's included and what's not. We do some customization. So let's say, for instance, we're quoting on a company right now that is run by a former bookkeeper, and she wants to maintain payroll. So normally we would include payroll as part of our packages. We're letting her keep it. And you know, I see a smile there from Kim. Kim, I have no problem with this person keeping their payroll. They're gonna do fine with it.
I know who it is.
You
I do.
interesting. PM me, I'll tell you if you're right.
Oh, I know I'm right.
Okay, so then
I'll PM you and you can verify though, but I'm very, very sure.
Okay. Determine the minimum price for services by the end of April. There's another breakdown of that goal. I'm a big believer in minimum prices as well. If you allow yourself to be beat down on price, you're just going to have a headache in the future. This is the price. Sorry, take it or leave it. I know in the past there's been stripping out of things, and we do that to some degree, but what are you willing to get out of bed for? What are you willing to take on this client for? Is it going to be, you know, $500 a month, $1,000 a month? I definitely don't think you want to be doing any clients at like $100 a month. I think that's just crazy underpriced. So then define the marketing strategy by the end of May. Determine the marketing tactics required and set the implementation goals. So where are you looking for your customers? How are you looking for your customers? All reverts back to the why, which reverts to your strategy and goes back to your ideal customer. And then, of course, the big BHAG is achieve that 50% revenue growth by the end of the calendar year. I saw some smiles there. I think there's probably some comments. Yes, Lynn.
Yeah, when you say define the ideal customer avatar, Yes, I've got my customer avatar. Just because somebody fits the avatar doesn't necessarily mean that there's somebody I want to work with. It's a personality thing.
But maybe that needs to be part of your avatar, is that those personality traits.
Some of them can be, not all
Because I
of
mean,
them.
I
That's
agree
part of
with you.
our
Like,
avatar.
Yeah.
We are very particular, and it is more to do with their personality than it is to do with their industry or anything else. And so that's it. Essentially, if we don't feel warm and fuzzies,
Yeah.
I'm going. And so that
Yeah.
is part of our avatar. It's just difficult to explain to somebody what our avatar is because it's a feeling, right?
Thank you, Tanya, because it is difficult, and you just get that gut feeling that these are really good people, and they're going to appreciate what you do, or maybe not.
Well, and sometimes your feeling is wrong, as Tracy said. Like sometimes you
True.
get a great feeling because it's like, they're interviewing, they're putting on all their good habits, and then all of a sudden it's like Jekyll and Hyde, right? So
Yes. Or you'll find out that, when they say they've done all the bank reconciliations, only to find out what they call manual reconciliation compared to what it is actually to be in the books.
yep.
I
Not
think this is where you hear a lot of people talk about, doing your diagnostic and how quickly are you taking on clients? Like I'm not talking about onboarding, but for me to decide if I'm taking somebody on as a client, yes, I want to work with you, is minimum 2 to 3 weeks. Minimum before I say, yep, let's proceed. So I'm taking time, I'm having a few meetings with them, I'm getting to know them, I'm seeing how they respond to emails and stuff. Obviously, yes, have I encountered surprises afterwards, but not as often as before I started doing this process.
I would like to add that there's a degree of human element to it. Right? Like people can be really good, and I think Tracy was saying sometimes people don't show their true colors. And I think that is sometimes true. I'm going to bring in a poker concept here. So our bodies and our eyes and everything that's about us brings in so much information from a subconscious level that we can't actually consciously process it. In poker, we call that spotting a tell, getting that gut feeling that somebody is doing an action one way or the other. But often it's that feeling that Tanya is talking about, that Lynn is talking about, that something doesn't smell right, something doesn't feel right. Be hesitant. Trust your gut. It probably knows best. Um, there was something else I wanted to say about that, but it had to do with, the human element. So sometimes there are people, and they could be awesome people who you really want to work with, you love working with them. They can have a bad day, and you can't punish them for having a bad day. And when that's happened in our firm, usually what ends up happening is they end up apologizing. Like, I'm sorry, I was having a really tough time because of XYZ. I never should have spoken to your teammate that way, or I never should have spoken to you that way. Never should have sent that email, whatever it is. But then, just we have to have a degree of humanity about us when we're doing. So, Linda, you had your hand up.
I was just wondering if anybody was willing to share descriptions of what your avatar looks like. I'm having trouble breaking down what it is that makes my ideal client, and I'm just looking for suggestions.
I think there are different elements to it. It looks like Tanya might have something to share, but essentially it's kind of like a profile, right? Like there might be certain metrics, like, you know what, I only want to take clients who have over $1 million in revenue because then they can afford to pay me. I only want to take on clients who do not have a substantial debt with CRA because, then, there's no chance of them getting their accounts frozen and us not getting paid. And I hate to sound so self-serving in that manner, but it's a business. It's not a favor, right? So we have to get paid. Now, there might be other elements to it, like where, demographics. I prefer working with women, or I prefer working with young people. Then it could be personality things, like I prefer somebody who's coachable, or I want somebody who is very outgoing and gregarious, or I want somebody who's introverted and organized. Those kind of different ideas.
Well, and it's interesting. Sandra and I literally just yesterday, I think, had this conversation and we looked at our existing clients and we just happened to be talking like it just came up because we were frustrated and whatever. And it's like, you know what? At the end of the day, the ones that we like the best that are really actually want to do things right, want to, learn, easily coachable, we're not nagging, all of this other stuff, and that we just really, really like happen to be female white collar. Our male blue collars are nice too, but it's they don't get us all this stuff. So they're like, I want to change, but they don't get us everything. And so we've got, women that are in, in the medical field, women that are in now of course there's John and I were talking about a woman who completely is the exact opposite, but that just seems to be, the generality of what we have of our existing clients seems to be more, and it's the 80 rule, right? There's, we've also got the men that are exactly the same too, but for the majority of it, I'd say about 80% of our clients are women, business owners, white collar, that are our best and the one we prefer to deal with the best. Kim.
Sure, just being mindful of time. We're just coming up to the hour.
Oh,
So
we are too.
throw in your responses in the chat. Kim, what did you have to say?
I was gonna say, when I was doing my ideal client avatar, I reached a point where I found it easier to define who my ideal client wasn't. I would sit here literally trying to think, who is my ideal client? Who's my ideal client? And I would be coming up with a blank slate in front of me. And then I gradually over time would have clients piss me off about one thing or another. And I would be like, oh my God, I'm never going to work with a client like this. And then I started to realize who my ideal client wasn't. And then when I sat and tried to find who my ideal client was, I had all these things that I could easily eliminate or put the opposite of.
You reverse engineering your ideal client, which is amazing because you're right. So you might not know who they are, like at the top of your head, but you know who they aren't. So who they are is in the pile that's left over.
It's funny. So there's a book that my son did not like, called Are You a Cow? And I remarked to Julia that, boy, this is a negative book. Like everything is, no, you're not a cow. No, you're not a chicken, whatever. But really, that's how we learn, is by eliminating things. So I really like that exercise. Now I kind of want to take a bunch of post-it notes and put them up on a wall and be like, write down various traits on it and then put them in the don't like or like piles and just kind of do that exercise.
On the wall look like, right?
Pardon?
I said to Tracy, we know what post-it notes on a wall look like. Did you see our things from Ignite last year, Jonathan?
Oh yeah.
Post-its are good. They're right in your face, and it's amazing to see once you start piecing them together.
And for those who don't want physical post-its, you can get actually sticky notes in Windows. I don't know what it is in Mac, but there's the same thing, and you can put those all over so as well too. Or work with a virtual whiteboard. There's so many different ways to work with what works for you.
The second
Beth,
box.
go ahead.
Second fox.
There you go. So Beth, go ahead and put your answer in the Q&A again. Because I don't see yours come in yet. I see everybody else's. Because again, both polls must be answered in order to get your CPD. We have B is the front runner. D is taking the behind, whatever. B and D.
So the one thing we don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said we could pick more than one here.
Yeah, I would agree. So really, it's the operative word is could be a SMART goal. And the reason could is because we don't know about the relevance of any of these goals. We don't know if they fit with the why, right? Are they specific? We got 50% revenue growth, 3 key processes. I think that's a little vague. It could be, more specific in which ones. Identify the characteristics of a desired team member. It seems like part of a goal, hiring one by the end of the quarter. I mean, that's time bound, but it seems like it's a little vague. design and implement a time blocking system. If anybody's not doing that, you need to do that. It saved my life multiple times. And then determine the steps necessary to have a successful share sale of the business by Q4 2026. Like these are, some of them are very specific, some of them are broader and vague, but none of them do we know if they are relevant. That was why I was. So I'm not going to go through the summary. We talked about BHAGs, bringing it down to just one thing, making sure those just one things are SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, and then looking at some examples. So if anybody knows, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. So it's from Alice in Wonderland, and really, it doesn't matter which way you go if you don't know where you want to go. Right? So really understanding your why, going in that direction, those are the things that would be most helpful. All right.
Okay, wonderful. I
So
am stop recording.
50% growth is a bit too night. I think that's a typo. I would like to aim for at least 25 to 30% by the end of the year. That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right, and Beth, I
our-
got your answer.
I'd love us to achieve 25%, you know, or that's our stretch goal.